Hey, if I fuck up, it's because I don't exactly have a script handy, so just bear with me and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome to watching me draw. I finished this huge piece, a lot bigger than I thought it would be, of an artist through the ages meme kind of thing. It used to be really popular. Maybe it still is. I don't know. I'm not ever present anywhere on the internet. I surprisingly have never done one of these despite being on, DeviantArt since the dawn of time. And so I thought it would be a fun thing to do. And interestingly, when I started sketching for it, I was dealing with a lot of weird emotions about it. I feel like anyone could relate to this, but especially those with mental illness like myself. It's so easy to look back at your past or your past self with kind of rose-tinted glasses, or this sense of superiority, like ha ha ha, I would do so much better in that situation now with what I know, or shame for who you used to be. And it's not healthy. It's not a great look, Chief. So this piece ended up being a really interesting exercise, kind of philosophical exercise, by which I mean I had to look at every iteration of myself and change the way that my brain wanted to think about that person. So instead of feeling sad for the person that I'm no longer able to be, or feeling, shame for the person I used to be, I really tried to look at each age that I drew, each version of myself, and approach them kind of with love. At the end of each of these little drawings, I kind of asked myself, what was this person like? What were their strengths and what did they teach me? And I found that really, really helpful in terms of looking at myself as a whole, complex, imperfect creature, especially given the all too tempting habit of kind of being a perfectionist when it comes to yourself. So yeah, let's stop talking about my philosophy and start talking about the drawings. So I started with just a quick little sketch in one of my sketchbooks, and I really wanted to force myself to kind of slow down and do a more simple, kind of cute style, because I know myself and I knew that even if I was able to do a more complicated or more realistic or whatever kind of style, that I would chicken out partway through or get tired or burnt out, and I would never finish this. And I think that simpler art forms are entirely valid, and I think that they're fun to look at, and this was super fun to do. So I'm really glad that I ended up giving myself that challenge and also giving myself the permission to do something a little bit more cartoony and just more fun and simple. I had a lot of problems with proportions for every iteration of myself, every age. You can tell I'm gonna have to put a frowny face counter on the top left or somewhere on the screen, because I'm sure so many other people do this, where you just get annoyed and you have to draw how you're feeling in that moment. I would say that 26-year-old me's style is kind of Seattle chic meets goth, which absolutely makes no sense to anyone, and I'm aware of this, but it's the best I can do. This part right here is me struggling to not over detail a little minute part of the look. I finally just had to start over and just do something super simple and not worry about so many wrinkles and so many little details of my shorts, because it didn't really go with the rest of the style. You'll notice my struggles with proportions for 22-year-old me, right there on the left, but I'm really proud that I just kept, trying and restarting. I feel a lot of the times when you're having proportion issues, and you just keep erasing and redrawing one little part of whatever you're working on, it's just so much easier to start over completely. A lot of the times, most of the time, your issues are just gonna work themselves out. At least that's what I found for me. So when I was 22, it was in 2015 to 2016, that kind of year. It was my senior year of college, and I was working on my senior thesis, which was basically a fancy way of saying what my focus was for my painting and drawing major at my college. My very beginnings were with anime and manga. That's my bread and butter. But I really pushed myself in the realm of painting and drawing in my major, and ended up at the very end with huge paintings, 5 by 6 feet abstract paintings, and a lot of it really like revolving around my experiences with mental illness and my experiences with connecting with others with mental illness. It was a really, really important time in my life, and I'm so glad that I got that opportunity. I absolutely do not regret my major at all in college, even if what I want to do now is maybe a little bit different. So now I'm working on 20-year-old me, and this was the iteration of myself that really gave me the most emotional struggle, if that makes sense. Because I look back at who I was when I was 20, and I think, oh my god, I was so happy, I was so joyful and energetic. And really, if I were to look back at myself in that time with a more realistic perspective, that was just the gap, the delay before the PTSD hit. If you don't know a lot about PTSD or CPTSD, it's so common to have a gap, months or years before, between the trauma and when you're in like a safe and happy place and can kind of digest that trauma before symptoms even start to appear. So this was my gap. This was where I was out of high school. I was more or less fresh out of an abusive relationship. I was happy. I was reinventing who I was and, building my brand. This was the era of YouTuber Kate. Yeah, it's something where I had to look, take a hard look at who I was and who I am now, and give myself permission to not be that energetic, young, fresh person anymore. I have my own issues. I had my own issues then. Now I'm working on 18-year-old me, and if it looks like I have no life in my eyes, it's because that's about how I felt. And this is what I'm talking about between 18 years old and 20 years old. I was in the midst of a very abusive relationship. Wouldn't be surprised if this person is still checking up on my DeviantArt. Last I checked, when I had my tracking widget for who was visiting my page, he certainly was. TBD if he's still, stalking me or not. I was sad, I was closeted. I kind of forced myself for my own safety to, I had previously come out as bisexual. That much is not true as of now, but I thought I was bisexual, and I kind of forced myself to go back to identifying as straight. It was a whole thing. Maybe I'll talk about it another time. It was a tough time. I was overwhelmed with AP classes. I was in this really bad relationship, and I was having a lot of stress with my friendships. God, it was so much. Now I'm working on 12-year-old me, and this was another kind of iteration of myself that kind of gave me emotions. I was so shy. Up until I was about 20, 21, I was so shy and quiet and nervous, especially like my first year in middle school. I had no idea kind of who I was or who other people were, and this was like a big year of personal growth in terms of like defining who I wanted to be and making best friends for the first time in my life. I had really, really long hair from 4th to 5th grade, and then I cut it off and I got a blue streak, and yes, I really did wear a padlock on my jeans as a fashion statement. I also had like a clippy pencil sharpener that I would wear. I was doing my best to be who I thought I wanted to be, and I really just have to approach that with love. Okay, so now I'm working on 7-year-old me, and this is when I started drawing, like, for real. I started drawing from this old How to Draw manga book by Katie Coop, I think is her name. I loved playing Kirby with my older brother and Sonic, loved anime catgirls, so I gave myself little catgirls just to respect the memory. I played Neopets like crazy. I had this fuzzy sweater that I absolutely loved. Those like stretchy, hairy yarn sweaters that are just so soft to touch. Loved that shit. I decided that I wanted to put different colored backgrounds behind each age that I drew, I ended up trying to do kind of like my favorite color that I could remember from each age. I ended up having to change that a little bit later on, as you will see with 20-year-old me. It ended up being cute, so I'm not complaining. When I was 7 years old, my family was in poverty. I was still seeing my dad every other weekend, who wasn't a great person. I've recently cut him out of my life, so I feel good about that. I was kind of a firecracker. I was a handful, as my mom likes to say, but I was so imaginative. I was never bored. I was always outside and playing, or inside and doing crafts or drawing or playing video games. I don't remember a ton from that time in my life, obviously because I was very young, but I thought it would be important to include kind of where it all began. And I think for fun, I'll probably put up one of my very first anime drawings, because it's just so fun to see and so cute. My fashion sense, I had no idea what to draw myself in, and actually partway through coloring this, I remembered that I used to wear this poofy jacket, this like winter jacket, like 24/7, and I'm so upset that I didn't draw myself in that, but I have the hairy sweater instead, so it's all okay. I also used to love wearing what I called bell-bottom jeans, which was like 20-30 years before my time. You know, I was 7 years old. I didn't have any idea what fashion was. I just ran around in the playground and pretended I was an anime cat girl. I wanted to do kind of repeating patterns as well for each of the backgrounds, kind of depending on who I was at that time in my life and what I liked the most. And I really liked cats. I don't know if I can stress this enough. I really liked cats. I was very pleased with how this first one was rendered, and I think had it turned out any worse, or like not as sharp and crisp, I think I would have maybe ditched this whole project. But I'm really happy that I didn't, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. One of my friends said that that the style ended up looking like an early 2000s like non-anime anime, and that is probably the most flattering thing anyone has ever said about my art. So shout out to my friend who said that. When I was 12, my favorite things included playing Ragnarok Online, which was it's still going, I still sometimes play it. It's an MMORPG that's basically pointless. I bought like 5 of the same t-shirt and wore them every day. I don't know why. I think I liked them, and I was like, I'm gonna get a bunch of these and not have to think about my outfit. I also looked up to my brother a lot, my older brother, to the point that my music taste matched his, and my fashion also matched his, which is a little unfortunate considering the fact that he didn't really have a fashion sense either. He was the self-conscious high schooler who wore the same hoodie every day. So I also wore the same hoodie every day. Not because I was self-conscious. I mean, I was shy and nervous. I just thought that I was cool because my brother did it. I was so excited to have this haircut. I was so particular about my hair for the longest time. I kept it long and straight and absolutely no layers or anything like that. And then one day out of the blue, I was like, I want this short haircut. And I picked out a picture in an old like hairstyle magazine. I don't know if anyone else used those, but I used those constantly in my childhood. And I brought it into the hairstylist and I was like, I want this. And she said, oh, so you want layers? And in my head I was like, no, I don't want layers, but I want this haircut. I ended up going through with the haircut anyway, and it was so much fun. This was the first time that I was able to kind of like embrace my wavy hair. And then I remember reading this book series called Replica, and in one of the books, well, it's about a clone, right? A clone with superpowers. I was a really cool 12-year-old, okay? And the main character goes onto an island in one of the books with a bunch of her other clones, replicas, and to tell everybody apart, they each got colored streaks in their hair. And the main character had a blue streak in her hair, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So I asked my mom, hey, can I get a blue streak in my hair? And we were really religious at the time, and I was surprised when she said yeah. And I was like, can I get a bunch of blue streaks in my hair? And she's like, let's just leave it at one. And I think that was a very smart call. Thanks, Mom. I'm putting music notes in the background because I loved music. I was in band for several years of my life. I would often listen to what I thought was cool music on my iPod in the hopes that random strangers passing me by would ask me what I was listening to, and then I would say, oh, I'm listening to this, and then I would impress them and they would think it was cool, which like would never actually happen in real life, but I was convinced that it would. When I was 18, I was obviously in high school, so this was 2011 to 2012. Like I said before, I was in an abusive relationship. It lasted almost 3 years. It wasn't abusive for all of the relationship, but unfortunately it was abusive about 8 months in, which is when I came out as bisexual, and everything just went to shit. My appearance was policed, so my hair was the longest it has ever been. And probably ever will be again. And I was just tired and stressed all the time. I mean, I was in AP classes, I was dealing with real life, I was dealing with college prep, I was dealing with this person that I had to put a mask on around. But it wasn't all bad because I survived. And when I was 18, right before I turned 19, I told this person off, and in what is forever my proudest moment, this person kind of kept me on a leash after we broke up. And would go back and forth between saying he needed me in his life and he didn't want to lose me, and then would say, you know, I'm thinking about cutting you off forever, and thinking about, you know, I don't want you in my life. It was just a constant back and forth, to the point that it was almost my 19th birthday. It was the week before, and I thought, I don't want this person in my life on my birthday. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So I sent him a text and I said, I don't know what you think friendship entails, but this isn't it. This is dysfunctional. You're hurting me, and I'm done. And he did the thing that a lot of abusers do, where he tried to get me to reply again with a really rude response. You know, he had to get the last word in, but I just ignored it. I just left him on red. Well, I didn't leave him on red because he didn't have an iPhone, but I metaphorically left him on red, and it was the coolest thing one of the coolest things I've ever done. And that is what I choose to remember about 18-year-old me. You know, I lived through stress. I passed most of my AP exams. I hated my sexuality, and I was dealing with constant abuse. But I left, and I learned to stand up for myself. It's gonna sound cheesy, but that person in that moment inspires me constantly. I want to go on record and say that every outfit I draw myself in, I actually owned. We'll try and pull up accurate pictures to show alongside the finished pieces. Yeah, I had that Pikachu shirt. I had that very emo looking pink shirt. I'll put up a picture, you'll see. For my background, I was going to do rainbows and then didn't because I couldn't draw them very well. So I ended up doing polka dots because I remember having a throw blanket on my bed that was polka dotted, and that just stuck out to me for some reason. When I was 20, I had just left another toxic relationship, and I decided I wanted to be happy. You know, I lived through the hardest, most intense depression of my life up until that point anyway, and I was so happy to have survived it that I just wanted to reinvent who I was. I decided to bleach all of my hair for the first time ever, and I ended up having pink hair for like 9 months, which I'm amazed I didn't get bored of it and all of that time. That being said, I'm very bored of pink now. I was so obsessed with it when I was 20 years old, and no longer is that the case. So when I was 20, I was drawing constantly. This was the first year that I was in studio art classes for my painting and drawing major. I met my current partner when I was 20. I tabled at SakuraCon Artist Alley for the first time. I actually have a video about that on my channel somewhere. I was on YouTube all the time. You know, I was vlogging constantly. I just remember being really happy. But one thing I need to remember is that I was also very anxious. And I think that that's a symptom of, you know, the PTSD, the delayed onset of PTSD. So one thing I need to remember is that, no, my life wasn't perfect. I was just kind of like growing into myself for the first time, I think. I really did have this cat shirt, this cat space shirt. Currently it lives on my t-shirt quilts that I made that took me like 2 years to make. It's one of the ugliest things I've ever seen, the blanket I mean, but every single piece has importance to me and has some kind of memory, so I love it. It's also very cozy, and also I put so much work into it. So that's that. The black and white scarf was a staple in kind of like my, the way I drew myself for a good number of years. Like from the time that I was like 14 through when I was 21, maybe 22. I don't remember when the black and white scarf went away. It was a gift actually from my best friend at the time. She and I were friends from when I was like 11 through when I was like 15. We kind of started drifting, but she lived in Canada. We played Ragnarok together all the time. She was the coolest. If she ever watches this video, she'll know who she is. We had our own secret code that was made up from her laptop keyboard freaking out when she plugged in an external keyboard into it, and I could understand what all of the gibberish meant. One time she wrote me a card written in this gibberish, and I think I still have it. I don't know if I can still understand it, but she was cool. I have a lot of good memories with this person. Stars have always been a big thing with me. I don't know why. I think that they're cute, and I definitely leaned into that when I was 20 and embracing my YouTube brand. When I was 22, or rather before I was 22, the summer before I turned 22, I was first diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I don't think that is the most accurate label for me anymore. I think that anxiety and depression kind of summed up what I was experiencing through complex PTSD and, whatever other fun additions to my mental health cocktail that I deal with. One thing I basically said to myself was, I suffered for so much longer than I had to because I lied to myself for so long. I was in denial. I told myself that I was fine and I wasn't. So I decided I wasn't going to lie anymore. What that meant for me was being open with people. If I felt off at work and somebody asked why, if I was talking with one of my coworkers and I said, oh, I'm feeling a little bit weird today, like I'm not feeling that great, and they asked why, I would say, oh, I'm adjusting to new medication, or, I'm having anxiety or something like that. I was tired of lying and covering up this part of myself for no reason. And what I found was that the more people I told, the more connections I made, the more people I realized were dealing with this too. Like specifically people that I thought were perfectly happy. And so that led into my whole senior thesis. First, it started with interviewing people who were also mentally ill and painting them. And then it ended up being kind of, it led into self-portraits. And then from there, it ended up being abstract kind of depictions it's hard to explain. Not so much like, this is a painting that means sad, as much as like, this is a painting that I made while I was sad, and all of the brush strokes were made with that in mind. The way that I used the materials were very much dictated by my mental state, and that led to two very large paintings, one 4x5 feet, one 4x6 feet, one 5x6 feet. At my final show at college, I wrote a little journal, had that next to these giant paintings, and these journals were copies of journal entries that I had written while I was, at my darkest points. Journal entries talking about my experiences adjusting to mental illness or adjusting to antidepressants, talking about my first experiences with meditation and mindfulness. And I got so many people walking up to me being like, I experienced this too. I felt so alone. It's so awesome that you're opening up about this. And it was, oh my God, the coolest experience of my life. To this day, I still maintain that I need to be honest about my experiences. And the more people are open and honest about their experiences with mental illness, the less taboo it will be, I hope. So finally, we're moving on to 26-year-old me, and that's me right now. I actually ended up cutting my hair between starting this drawing and finishing it. Big surprise. I pretty much expected that would happen, so I ended up changing the drawing to be more accurate. Even though the longer hair did look cooler in drawing form, I wanted to be honest and accurate. Yeah, I don't really know what to talk about for me now. I mean, I'm dealing with quarantine. I'm dealing with the aftermath of trauma. Nothing really new, just PTSD takes a long time to kind of settle and decide to be present, decide for the body to be aware. I was working for a company as a marketing employee. I lost my job right before the quarantine really took over, and since then it's been a lot of kind of self-healing and being safe and social distancing and ultimately rediscovering the things that I love. I feel like I go through this once in a while. I'll be like, I actually like doing XYZ. So I've been trying to focus on the mundane, trying to spend time with my friends digitally, of course, giving myself permission to enjoy small things in life. So even if that's like not doing anything quote unquote productive, which is still something, yes, that I struggle with, years after finishing my AP classes that drilled that into me and years after graduating from college, yeah, newsflash, you can do things that are not productive and enjoy them, and actually that's a perfectly fine thing to do. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing, I've been drawing a lot, I've been hanging out with my dog a lot. I'm starting a contract position for work soon, which is really exciting, and I'm thinking about kind of where I want to be. I might want to go back to school soon. I want to volunteer. I want to contribute to the society that I live in. Weirdly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to just be present and listen to my body and listen to my brain and do the things that bring me joy. For my background, I wanted to do little glitters because I am a practicing witch now, and it was simple and I was tired by the end of this drawing. Okay, so let's talk about each age, and we'll kind of go through and show a little picture alongside. It'll be really fun. When I was 7 years old, my likes included cats and drawing and playing video games. Nothing much has changed. My strengths included imagination, joy, and determination. I did not care how bad I was at drawing. I wanted to keep doing it. When I was 12, I loved chatting online with my friends, playing MMORPGs like I said before. I was really open-minded. I was ready to try new things. I was ready to kind of change my entire mentality. If I ever got bored with a school project, I would just think, how can I make this fun and interesting for myself? How can I bend the rules to make something a little bit more interesting for myself? When I was 18, I liked to play Pokemon and old GameCube games. I liked to go on adventures. I loved to help my friends. 18-year-old me taught me resilience and patience and standing up for myself. When I was 20, I liked vlogging, making YouTube videos, drawing, playing my 3DS. I got really into Animal Crossing New Leaf. I liked the color pink, obviously, and my strengths included my energy, my passion, and my imagination. When I was 22, I liked painting, writing, I journaled a lot, and connecting with others. And I wrote studying. I guess I did. I don't remember writing that, but oh, I know what that was about. Okay, not about academia so much as studying other artists and reading, art books in the library. Okay, slightly less nerdy. My strengths included being introspective, being honest, and of course my passion. And finally, me now at 26. My likes include being outside, taking walks, cooking. Strangely enough, yeah, I realized, hey, I actually like to cook. I'm not actually so tired that I can't do that thing. Drawing still, obviously that's a constant with all of these, and spending time with my friends. And my current strengths, because I think it is very important to recognize your own accomplishments always, even if it's a little uncomfortable to talk about while recording yourself talking, include being positive, being kind to people around me, confident, that's a new one, and passionate, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had fun. This was a super interesting piece to make, very introspective, really rewarding and fun, and it's also really fun to look at the final piece and see that each little age kind of looks like a trading card. But anyway, here's the final piece. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay safe. Bye.